Good morning. Good morning. We are continuing with our learning of the Aruch HaShulchan with an angle, with an attempt to bring the halacha into Penimei and Penimei into the halacha. We are up to our Chaim Siman Aleph, and we're at Sif Zion now. We're at Sif Zion. Sif Vav, in Sif Vav, the Aruch HaShulchan spoke about the idea that the Hakadosh Baruch Hu that he described in Sif Hey, the Hakadosh Baruch Hu that is Soviv Kol Almin, Mamalik Kol Almin, is Mahave Hakol and also Manhig Hakol. That is both Havaya Hu HaElokim at the same time. That is the Hakadosh Baruch Hu that we are supposed to direct our service to, that we are supposed to direct our ahava to, and he brought that in, and he brought the pasuk in Shema v'haftas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha b'chol me'odecha into the conversation. He started developing a little bit some ideas around that pasuk, and he's going to continue with that now. And he's going to say as follows: He says, "Ubesifri Sif Zayin, Ubesifri Darshu," and in the Sifri we darshan. Rav Meir says, "Harehu Omer." The pasuk says, "V'haftas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha." You have to love Hakadosh Baruch Hu with all of your heart. Ahavaihu b'chol levavcha Avraham Avinu. You should love him with all your heart. What does that mean? What does it mean to love Hashem with all your heart? It means to love him like Avraham Avinu loved him. How did Avraham Avinu love him? Shenemar. It says, "Avram Avi." Avram is my beloved. The Omer, and it says, "Umatzasa es levavo ne'eman lefanecha," that his heart is trustworthy in front of me. So Avram is connected to this idea of ahava. Ubechol nafshecha, and you have to love him with all of your soul. The pasuk continues, ki Yitzchak, like Yitzchak, she'akar atzma al gabe hamizbeach. Yitzchak, who loved Hakadosh Baruch Hu with all his soul, because he was willing to and ready to give his life, being bound up as a carbon on the mizbeach. Ubechol me'odecha, and with all your me'odecha, with all of your possessions. And we talked last time a little bit about different interpretations of me'odecha. Have a modelo ki Yaakov. You should be gracious to him and thank him, like Yaakov, ki inyan shenamar, katanti makol hachasadim. Like Yaakov says that I have been made small by all of the chasadim that you have done for me. So that is hodah. That's sort of hodah is to thank, but hodah is to acknowledge your own smallness in the face of your benefactor, and that's katanti makol hachasadim. And he continues and he expands on this a little bit, and he says, "Va'od amrusham," and it also says over there in the Medrash, "Va'ahavta," you should love Hakadosh Baruch Hu. What does that mean? Ahavehu al kol habrios ka'avram avicha. You should cause Hashem's love to be upon all of creation, like Avraham. Ke'inyan shenemar, as it says, "V'yas hanefesh asher asu b'charon." It says that Avram loved all of creation, kol habrios, because he was making nefashos in Charan, like we know that refers to being Megayer Gerim Kolomar, Kamosha Avram Mipnei Shaya'avo Belevin Nefesh, just like Avram, who loves Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Belevin Nefesh, powerfully, deeply, Belevin Nefesh, Kara Es B'nei Adam Lahamin Belokuso. What did that lead him to do? That led him to expand himself outward to other people, not to live in his bubble, not to focus only on himself, but to expand outward and to focus more on others. Kain Tasa Ata, so should you do. La'avehu al habrios, l'karvan la'avodas Yitzbarach, to cause Hakadosh Baruch Hu's love to rest, to devolve in other people, on other people, to bring them close to Hakadosh Baruch Hu, to cause there to be more avas Hashem. And how do you do that? You have to expand the circle. It's interesting. We know that Avram represents Chesed, Yitzchak represents Gevura. Avram here is connected to Ahava. Ahava is an aspect of Chesed. It's expansive, right? Chesed is an expression of Ahava. It's an expression of love. And Avraham here is an expansive person, right? He's moving outward. He's expanding himself outward. And he's traveling around the world. He's spreading Yedias Hashem and Avas Hashem wherever he goes. He's reaching out to people outside of his circle. Avram is an epitome of Chesed. And then Yitzchak, which we know represents, Yitzchak is reflective of, or an expression of Gevura. Gevura is an aspect of Bina, is an aspect of Dinim, is an aspect of constriction. Yitzchak is a constricted character. He's Akad al Galbi as Mizbeach. He's tied up and bound up on the Mizbeach. And more than that, we see that Yitzchak in his life is a person that operates only within boundaries. He doesn't leave Eretz Yisrael. He's designated as a Karban. He's hektish. That creates certain strictures and boundaries. When he goes and he does things, when he goes out there into the world, he goes and he redigs the wells that Avraham dug. He doesn't dig his own wells, but he redigs the wells that Avraham does. He operates within the frameworks that have already been given to him. And that's Yitzchak, not expansive the same way. That's B'chol Nafshecha. And then B'chol Me'odecha is with all of your Ma'od. That's Yaakov. The Medrash says Yaakov Avinu, we know, is reflective of Tiferes. What is Tiferes? Tiferes is a union, is a synthesis of Chesed and Gevura, produces Tiferes. But Tiferes, as the Arizal teaches in many places, Tiferes is much more than the sum of its parts. It's not just a union of and a balance of Chesed and Gevura. It produces Chesed and Gevura produce something entirely new and much, much bigger, much more expansive than where they come from and what they are. That's Tiferes, and that works with the idea in the Medrash that corresponds to B'chol Me'odecha. What is B'chol Me'odecha? One beautiful interpretation is B'chol Me'odecha. We talked about a few interpretations last time, but B'chol Me'odecha means with all of your Ma'od, with all of your more than where you are. What does it mean to love Hashem b'chol me'odecha? It means to go a little bit beyond where you're at right now, to take one step beyond the horizon of your current limits, of your current framework, and to reach a little bit beyond that, right? This is the idea of also like you have an Or Penimei, and the whole idea is to connect the Or Penimei, the Hasaga, and the Tfisas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the sense and awareness and recognition and hakara of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you currently have and that you've ameliorated within yourself, within your own kelim, that's Or Penimei, and to access something more that exists beyond that you don't yet have access to, that's the Or Makiv, that exists beyond the Or Penimei. And as the Arizal describes, you have to then expand outward and push the Or Penimei. The Leshem expands on this at great length. You have to push the Or Penimei a little bit outward to bring the Or Makif into the Or Penimei. The Or Makif then will start to, the Or Makif, which was previously inaccessible, unable to fit within your Kalim because your Kalim weren't big enough. Your Kalim get bigger and bigger as you reach for something beyond them. Not too much at one time, because then there can be a sefiros HaKelim. There's riboy or, and that can be bad. But a little tiny bit, a ma'od, a little more than where you currently are. You reach beyond where you currently are a little bit, and you access the Or Makif that you aren't yet accessing, and you bring that within yourself, and that becomes the new Or Penimei, which gives you access to a new level of Or Makif that was previously unimaginable to you. Previously, there was an Or Makif that you could see, you just couldn't get. You couldn't really appreciate. You couldn't bring within you. You didn't have the Kalim to really fully own. And now you own what was previously the Or Makif that you put it on. And for another Or Makif that's the previous Makif, which something you didn't even know existed in the first place. And you have an ability to push yourself a little bit more and get that. And on and on and on. Ad infinitum, literally ad infinitum, ad ein sof. So b'chol me'odecha, Yaakov Avinu, b'chol me'odecha, Yaakov Avinu is Tiferes. Yaakov Avinu is someone who is pushing beyond the limits within which the frameworks in which he exists. Yaakov Avinu is b'chol me'odecha, is Tiferes, is taking the kochos of Yitzchak and Avraham and creating something that's entirely much, much bigger than Avraham and Yitzchak together at all, an entirely new muchus, a Yisrael, a Bnei Yisrael, an entire nucleus of a people that get born out of the kochos of Chesed and Gevura, but those two together produce something entirely much bigger and much newer, and that is B'chol Me'odecha, moving a little bit more, pushing a little bit further than where you currently are. And those are the three modes of loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'chol Levavcha, like Avraham Avinu, with Chesed, with expansiveness, with attention and awareness and consciousness and attentiveness to things outside of myself, and that's very, very important. And in contrast to that, b'chol nafshecha, with the nefesh, which is deep and internal, moving a little bit back inward, koach gevuros, which is Yitzchak. I have to pay attention. I can't be too expansive, because being too expansive stretches me too thin and leads me to losing the ability to stay grounded and connected, and so on and so forth. So you have to rein it in a little bit. B'chol nafshecha. And by balancing those two modes of avodah Hashem, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol avavcha, b'chol nafshecha, chesed and gevura, we can also access b'chol me'odecha, those two things together, and the tension that creates between them. Living within that tension between them gives me an opportunity to push a little bit, b'chol me'odecha, a little bit more, sefiros Yaakov, and that leads me to the next level, and the next level, and the next level. This is also a reflection of the idea of Ratza V'Shov, right? The two core aspects of avodah, which are ingrained into the very nature of reality. Everything is always Ratza V'Shov. Everything is always aliyah and out and growing, and then contraction, moving back a little bit, regrouping, turning inward, so that you can then move back outward. This is also the idea of godless hamochin and katnus hamochin. Ahava, chesed, ratza is just a reflection, or is just an aspect, a bechina of godless hamochin. When I'm operating in a mode of b'chol levavcha, avas Hashem b'chol levavcha, I'm expanding outwards. My mind is open. I'm open to possibilities, like Avraham is open to possibilities. He sees the world around him. The godless hamochin, he can see potential people to win over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a space that can be filled with more avos Hashem, and more avos Hashem, and more avos Hashem. I mean, so he expands, chesed, ahava, ratzo, outward. And in contrast, the shov, the chol nafshecha, Yitzchak, represents a katnus hamochin. When there's expansiveness, inevitably there always has to be constriction and contractedness. Katnus hamochin. I'm not open-minded. I'm not expansive. I don't have an abundance mindset where I have the kalim and I have the ability to give and grow and expand and share and so on and so forth. Maybe now I have an experience of katnus hamochin, where I feel impoverished, I feel small, I feel mevulval, I feel confused, I feel like I'm stuck with it, with all kinds of sefiros that I don't know how to resolve and I can't live with. That's gevuros, that's Yitzchak, that's being stuck and turning inward, to regroup, to consolidate, to expand, and to prepare then to expand, which then that process of godless and katnus, avas Hashem, bebechinas b'chol avavcha, and avas Hashem bebechinas b'chol nafshecha, can bring me then to b'chol me'odecha sefiros. Again, that process of godless hamochin followed by katnus hamochin, ratza v'shov, up and down, back and forth, outward, and then turning back inward in order to turn back outward in a bigger way, produces sefiros. Because next time I turn outward, it's going to be much bigger. It's different than last time I turned outward, and it's not just outward in a quantitatively. I'm not just going from inward to outward. I'm moving qualitatively into something entirely new, an entirely new kind of avodah. I've received and I've ameliorated a whole new level of or makif into the or penimei, and that allows me to access entirely new levels of avodah. Od Garcinan, he continues in Sif Zayin, Od Garcinan besifri. It also says in the Sifri there, Lefi shenemar v'ahavta, since it says v'ahavta eni yodea ketzad ohavim oso, Talmud lomar v'hayu advarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzav hayom al levavecha. How do you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu? The Medrash says you have to place these words that I'm commanding you hayom, today, as we know the famous Medrash hayom, every moment, all the time, every single moment it's happening at this moment. Hayom, I'm commanding it to you right now. It's not something that happened 3,000 years ago. I'm commanding it to you now. Al levavcha. You have to put it in your heart. What does that mean? Put it in your heart. Shemitoch kach atamakir es misha amar v'haya olam. Putting it in your heart, putting these ideas, putting these words in your heart. That's how you recognize who it is that spoke v'haya olam, and the world came into being. That's how you recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Avas Hashem is a function of internalizing things b'chol levavcha, in your heart, not just doing. Doing action, maisa, mitzvahs anashim milumada, That's not avas Hashem. The only way to come to avas Hashem, that's performative. But that's not a feeling of avas Hashem. Ahava is a feeling. Ava is a feeling. You can't be yotze avas Hashem through actions, because action is not ava. Action can be a way of showing ava. Action perhaps can be a way of generating ava. It can work both ways. It can both produce ava if you take action and engage with someone, communicate with someone, do for someone. That can generate feelings of ava if done in a healthy and right way. Otherwise, it can generate resentment and disdain. But if done in a right way, it can generate ava, avas Hashem, and then it can also be used to express avas Hashem. The ava is there, but the ava is just internal, and I have to externalize it. It has to express itself outwards, like the neshama and the guf. The internal ava that exists internally, like the neshama expresses outward. And how does the neshama express outward? Through the physical body, through my guf, through my personality, through my actions, through my thoughts and feelings on a more abstract and higher level of neshama. And likewise, ava is going to express itself outward in action. But action in and of itself is not ahava. And so he says, kolomar, what does this mean? She'im hahisbonenos b'Torah, through contemplation, deep meditation, deep contemplation in Torah, tis yashev ha'ava b'leiv b'hechrach. It has to be necessarily that ahava will settle in your heart through focus and contemplation, meditation on Torah, not performative action, but focus, thoughtfulness, consciousness, mindfulness, presence with the Torah, and a reflection on that presence with the Torah and what it is that I'm sitting with. That produces avas halev, b'chol levavcha, by focusing on v'hayu advarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzav chayom, by taking the devarim asher anochi mitzav chayom al levavcha through hisbonenos, through internal meditation, through internal focus, which of course will then memela express itself outwardly. If it's real, it will express itself outwardly in ma'aseh and action. That will produce avas Hashem.